Good morning, and thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Not the most active day from a news flow perspective, but still lots simmering within. First, the global news flow. The US, first, there's some geopolitical moves out there. So, China and India have agreed to maintain security and stability on the ground. There's a bilateral meeting, and apparently a positive one. At the same time, the ante between US and China keeps on moving up, right? So Joe Biden now wants chip makers getting the US aid to curb China investments. There's clearly something happening out there. And by the way, there are multiple news reports of how global countries, including US and some others, are thinking of increasing investments in India in various ways, including food parks as well. So the China plus one in a lot of ways is certainly benefiting India. Apple joined fellow tech giants in putting a lid on hiring, as a result of which it brought about a reversal in the US markets as well. And oil has moved higher after Saudis declined to make any promises regarding future output increases. The larger thought process was that it is very unlikely that Joe Biden would go to Saudi and come out without a deal. We haven't gotten a deal as yet, and that's a bit of a surprise because Saudis have declined to make any promises, and as a result of which there has been a bounce back in crude. So US markets coming off, oil moving higher, not the best of circumstances. In fact, let's get the US markets up on the screen and what they did yesterday. So a bit of a downtick there. More importantly, not that it was a catastrophic pullback, a catastrophic number out on the downside, but it was a pullback from the highs, and which is actually the tough bit, led by Apple, of course. Some of the US banks were doing okay midway through trade, but I think everything then post that came off a little bit. So that's, of course, with regards to the markets. And Bitcoin went up, yes, but dollar index back to at 107 or just hovering around that mark. The US 10-year yield inched up quite significantly in trade yesterday. So that is the, the the change, if you will, that happened, which needs to be noticed. The SGX Nifty, I would be really surprised if it's showing anything positive. I haven't seen it in the morning, but yeah, 127 points in the red. Not a surprise move at all. So what's the trade setup for the day, therefore? I think one, that the strong follow-up buying post a favorable weekly close last week is a good sign. But I think today the global mood will wane, which is showing today. And unlikely that it will really change dramatically maybe in the second half. But long positions may stay intact till the index stays above that 16,000, 16,100 zone. So I think that is something that most people will be watching out for. And to my mind, FMCG and real estate stocks remain the key havens for people who want to go long. Remember today, while the numbers from Prestige and Oberoi came in over the weekend and yesterday, uh, the brokerage nodes, for example, on Oberoi are fairly optimistic. So therefore, real estate stocks certainly in the fray, and FMCG by virtue of HUL's numbers today. And if HUL commentary turns out to be mildly positive, then these stocks, which have actually gained quite a bit already, might do even better. The flip side to this is they've had such a good rally that if HUL doesn't quite deliver, then there could be a pullback. But I somehow think that the tailwinds are in place for FMCG for the near term, and you might well see them do okay. FI's net bought about 156 crores, DI's net bought about 844 crores. A bunch of bulk deals as well yesterday, so keep that in mind. Axis had continuously seen bulk deals in trade yesterday. Some other stocks had done, so I don't know if it's a result of some individual bulk deals also playing in place, as a result of which FI, the net buy number, was about 156 crores. I do think, viewers, that let's not get caught in this what FIs are doing on a daily basis per se. But if you just compare this trade setup or this buy number with any of the other buy numbers that we were talking about in or sell numbers that we were talking in Jan, Feb, March, April, better part of May and June maybe too, that's large sell numbers from the FIs, which have just completely come off in the last few days. So that's probably some good news to latch on to. Heavy results day today, by the way. Ambuja, EU Small Finance Bank, DCM Shriram, then the two biggies, HDFC Life Insurance and Hindustan Unilever from the Nifty. ICICI Lombard, remember, had a couple of big upgrades recently, so that will be in focus. Network 18 Media, more so after bagging the IPL digital rights, and TV18 Broadcast in the same vein. Polycab India, which has actually had a slightly rough year, but you never know, this quarter might turn out to be a good one. So it'll be interesting to see a bunch of these stocks uh, and kind of see how the results and the commentaries. More importantly, after ICICI approves decent showing, onus on HDFC Life to do an encore, and HUL, all eyes on the big boy and the commentary that it posts. All right, what about stocks for the day today? Now, I do think that despite the fact that this news came out in the fag end of market hours, I do think that telecom still remains a pocket which would be the pocket of the day. Now, both Bharti and RIL, right? And why? Because of these numbers. Look at the third line, which is the Adani data. Adani Group deposited just about 1 billion earnest money. Frankly, with this amount, it is now evident that Adani is not getting into the telecom fray. So remember Bharti Airtel had corrected quite viciously on the day when the news came out that the Adani Group has made an earnest money, or rather made a bid for 5G. I think all of that or some bit of that could get reversed. And some bit of it did get reversed in trade yesterday as well. But I do think that it might get extended today simply because it came out during the last 5, 10, 15 minutes of markets. So I do think that if at all a pocket has to do well today and withstand the selling pressure, it could well be Bharti and Reliance. By the way, CLS has a view on telecom. They're saying that on the 5G auction EMD, the key surprise is the 1 billion rupees EMD by Adani. Adani's spend can be a mere 9 billion and poses no risk to telcos seeking 5G spectrum. And they say that for Vodafone Idea, the EMD will not be able to bid for pan India or even all of its established markets 5G spectrum, and therefore the ground is open for Bharti and Reliance Jio to bid for the places that they want to. Well, Jio's earnest deposit is 140 billion, much higher than Bharti. But clearly, Jio will lead, Bharti will follow, Voda will be a distant third, I presume, on the basis of the earnest money deposit that they've done. Adani data is just for captive use, clearly. So that's the view on telcos. I do think it could be an active pocket today. Well, Reliance will be active for more reasons than one, because Asian energy shares have jumped as oil is up on the Saudi output caution, and therefore Reliance certainly remains a stock in focus. As would Alok Industries, RIL Group company. The numbers came out not the best. And is this a sign of what could happen for some of the other textile companies? Don't quite know. Very difficult to call. Remember yesterday, Vardhman Textiles and the likes were up and about in trade. It'll be interesting to see this quarterly numbers for some of these. But yeah, I would reckon that Alok's numbers would kind of put a bit of a cloud maybe. And Alok, of course, has a lot of their one-off anomalies and their individual issues as well. But let's wait and watch if textiles have a bit of a sour day today. Tube investments could be interesting. Remember, so the news is that TI Electric is going to buy 65.2% stake in IPL Tech Electric for 246 crores. Remember, the Murugappa Group set up TI Electric to re-enter the EV space with electric three-wheelers and e-tractors. Now, this is clearly a foray into that, and we're seeing a bunch of players make significant moves, small moves but important moves into their respective domains, and Murugappa Group is no different. So I don't know if Tube Investments reacts or no, but certainly a thing to keep in mind. Some other stocks in news include a Hindalco. Hindalco and Aquas are in a strategic alliance for commercial aerospace sector. Interesting. Mangalore Chemicals, they've shut the phosphatic fertilizer plant on non-availability of raw material. This could be viewed slightly negatively. Nuclear Software, they won a deal from Vietnam's PVCom Bank for digitizing the lending operations. So maybe could be an interesting bit. Hitherto, I mean, we don't see these in announcements usually of Far East players getting into, giving offshoring to Indian companies. It's been happening for a while, I know, but the reportage usually used to be reserved for US and EU. We're seeing this happening out here as well. Maybe it's a big one for nucleus, so it could be interesting. Some price volume action seen in select stocks yesterday. So in the large cap side, I thought the volume action and price action in ICICI Bank, Axis, and Infosys, all three, was very impressive. Most Axis, of course, had a bunch of bulk deals, so volumes actually would move higher. But even in ICICI and in Infosys, both the volumes and the price action, cash market, by the way, I'm not talking about derivatives, cash market volumes really went up. We saw some delivery-based buying into these stocks, as also, like I said, in Vardhman Textiles, Rallis, and Shriram Transport Finance. So some interesting moves there into a bunch of these stocks. Could be interesting to watch. In terms of Broking, like I said, I mean, do watch out for Oberoi Realty. It's had some decent traction on the brokerage side in the session today, so could be an interesting one to focus on. And of course, oil and telecom, as from a news flow perspective, and from what dealers are usually going after these days, FMCG and real estate certainly remain in focus. So these are a few pockets on what will arguably be a dull day. The world sentiment isn't the most bullish. Oil has inched up, which is usually not viewed too positively from an Indian perspective. So a couple of things playing against, but the trend is certainly, for now, a buy on dips trend as opposed to a sell on rallies, at least for the very near term. Let's see if that changes if the markets were to correct for a few days. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a safe day ahead.